Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I am here today to do a book haul for the month of March. I love book hauls. It's one of my favorite videos to film every month. I know some people don't like them, but I just really enjoy sharing what I have found to bring into my library this month, and in some cases, something that has been sent to me, which was the first book we'll talk about, and actually the first 3 books we'll talk about. And helping people discover what they're interested in and talking to people in the comments about these books and all of that good stuff. So we're going to get into it. I will just note that I am doing this book haul a little earlier in the month than I would ordinarily. I'm actually filming this on March 19th, and I'm going to schedule it later. Joel and I are going to be in Seattle at the end of March, so I'm filming this now so I can post it later. Anything I get that last week of March while we are in Seattle, and I'm sure we'll be visiting Seattle bookstores, is going to end up in my April book haul, and that's fine. Always, just kick the problems down the road and then you don't have to worry about them. But anyway, let's get started talking about this fun pile of books. I love a book haul that has a mix of frontlist titles, like new things, upcoming things, and older books like backlist titles. And I think there's a really interesting mix in here. Hopefully you agree. As I said, the first 3 books were sent to me, and the first 2 are from Putnam. Putnam had they had an influencer fill out form, and I hate the term influencer. I don't like to necessarily think of myself as that, but I guess, hey. So I filled it out, and apparently it's been working because they have been sending me stuff pretty steadily. So that's fun. So the first 2 are the result of that. And first, we're going to talk about All the Other Mothers Hate Me by Sarah Harmon. This one, I believe, is published at this moment. There will also be links to all of these books down below if you would like to purchase them. Those links take you to bookshop.org, which supports independent bookstores. There will also be ebook links down below. You could also, if you'd rather not use Bookshop, you could order at your local independent bookstore, or maybe they'll have them. Or support your local library. Libraries always need your help and support, so it's a good thing to do. Anyway, as I said, this is published by Putnam. They sent it to me, and it sounds pretty fascinating. The blurb on the cover says, a biting, twisty, utter delight of a thriller. There are blurbs from Liv Constantine, who wrote The Next Mrs. Parrish, and yeah, that seems pretty cool. Here is the description of this book. I'm going to move so you can see the cover while I read it. The missing boy is 10-year-old Alfie Risby, and to be perfectly honest with you, he's a little S-word. I try not to curse on this channel. I curse a lot in real life, but I try not to do it here. Florence Grimes is a 31-year-old party girl who always takes the easy way out. Single, broke, and unfulfilled after the humiliating end to her girl band career, she has only one reason to get out of bed each day: her 10-year-old son, Dylan. But then Alfie Risby, her son's bully and the heir to a vast frozen food empire, mysteriously vanishes during a class trip, and Dylan becomes the prime suspect. Florence, for once, is faced with the task she can't quit. She's got to find Alfie and clear her son's name or risk losing Dylan forever. The only problem? Florence has no useful skills, let alone investigative ones, and all the other school moms hate her. Oh, and Florence has a reason to suspect Dylan might not be as innocent as she would like to believe. Hilarious and twisted, propulsive and furious, All the Other Mothers Hate Me is the must-read book of the year. Which sounds kind of fun. I haven't been reading a whole lot of sort of mystery thriller books in recent years, but this sounds fun. It hits that sort of fun thing. I think mystery thrillers, in order to catch my attention right now, they either need to be in the classic form, like an Agatha Christie, or just a classic mystery, like Agatha Christie. Or they could be kind of fun. Think of I Think I Might Be in Trouble by Daniel Aleman, which I read last year. That got around it because it was sort of that same sense of being like hilarious and twisted. And Therefore, this sounds intriguing. In my book hauls, I love to read a little bit from the opening of the book to give you a sense of what you might be in for if you pick this book up. There's a prologue that begins with that same line, the missing boy is 10-year-old Alfie Risby, and to be perfectly honest with you, he's a little S-word. Let's jump to the first chapter, though. I generally try to skip prologues. Chapter 1, Shepherd's Bush, London, Friday, 7:45 a.m. I wake up with a girls' night song stuck in my head. To be honest, the quake never took off like the label had hoped. It didn't help that a devastating 8.9 magnitude tremor had ripped through Southern California the same week our single was released, collapsing a multi-story parking garage like a souffle and trapping 346 people inside. The song itself is still a jam, though. I mean, I guess hopefully your souffles don't collapse, but I see what she's doing there. So that sounds fun. It's All the Other Mothers Hate Me by Sarah Harmon. Next one. I am so excited about this one because if you remember, Joel and I both read Love and Saffron by Kim Fay on an audio back to back when we went to Italy. Did you know we went to Italy? We did. And just loved it. It's a really great epistolary novel about, well, mostly epistolary novel, about two women who meet by starting to write letters to each other. And through the letters, they forge this really deep friendship that changes both of their lives. And one of the women is a very picky eater, and she ends up being opened up to this entire world of culinary adventures, and it's really great. It's about friendship, it's about food, it's about the way friendship and support can change your life, and it's so beautiful. And this kind of sounds like it's going to do the same thing with books thrown in as a twist. It's Kate and Frida by Kim Fay. This has recently been published for sure, because I posted a photo of Teddy with this book on Instagram, and Kim Fay actually commented and loved it. So, a novel of friendship, food, and books. I mean, what more do you need? Right away. So, Joel and I are planning to listen to the audio of this when we drive to Seattle over the weekend. So, by the time you see this, if all goes to plan, we will have read this, because we're so excited. And even though we did Love and Saffron back to back, we have been waiting for an opportunity to listen to this on audio together, aka a road trip. And now that we have a road trip, it's going to be perfect. Just absolutely perfect. So here is what this book is about. Sometimes a book can change your life. It certainly happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to a lot of you out there as well. 20-something Frida Rodriguez arrives in Paris in 1991, relishing the city's butter-soaked cuisine and seeking her future as a war correspondent. But when she writes to a bookshop in Seattle, she receives more than just the book she requests. A friendship begins that will redefine the person she wants to become. So there's also shades of 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff, which I also love, and I know a lot of you love as well. Seattle bookseller Kate Fair is transformed by Frida's free spirit, spurred to believe in herself as a writer, to kiss her handsome coworker, and to find beauty even in loss. Through the most tumultuous years of their young lives, personally and globally, Kate and Frida sustain and nourish each other as they learn the necessity of embracing joy, especially during our darkest hours. This mouth-watering oasis of a novel is a love letter to bookshops and booksellers, to the passion we bring to life in our 20s, and to the last precious years before the internet changed everything. I am sold, I am sold, and I am sold. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm going to be so excited to read this book. I loved Love and Saffron. And if you haven't read it, it'd be a good idea to catch up to it. Ooh, part 1 has a lovely illustration of a book called Serve It Forth, MFK Fisher, A Croissant. Look at that. Isn't that just adorable? I hope all of the chapters have something like this. And there's a quote from Robert Louis Stevenson's book, Across the Plains. Youth is wholly experimental. The essence and charm of that unquiet and delightful epoch is ignorance of self as well as ignorance of life. I like that. So the book begins. Frida Rodriguez, en route. October 2nd, 1991, Paris, France. Bonjour, Puget Sound Book Company. Greetings from my midnight view at Hotel La Louisiane. Ivory moonlight glinting off zinc rooftops, an autumn chill in the air, and me at my desk, cocooned in a baggy sweater a la Julie Christie in Dr. Zhivago. Oh, that made my gay heart sing. As I continue to hunt for a book. Naturally, why else would I be writing to you? I spent the whole day with my new pal Kirby scouring the City of Lights. Of course, we hit the venerable Shakespeare and Company and gave Village Voice a chance, and the bookstalls too, only to discover that this magnifique metropolis is awash in macho old Hemingway, but good luck finding his better half. I need Martha Gellhorn's The Face of War. Thus charming beginning. Thus begins the... I really messed that up. It's a very charming beginning to Kate and Frida by Kim Fay. Again, I really just cannot wait to read that book, and hopefully we will be able to talk to you about it in our wrap-up for the month of March, which we will be doing when we get home, which would be, should be just like end of March. All right, next was a total surprise. I didn't even know that this book exists and is coming. It will be on sale on June 3rd, so if you use the affiliate link down below, that will be for a pre-order. But I didn't know this book existed or was coming, and someone from Knopf sent it to me. And I'm so glad that they did. It's the very heart of it, New York Diaries, 1983 to 1994 by Thomas Mallon. I was already intrigued when I saw the title and the subtitle. The name Thomas Mallon sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. And then I saw author of Fellow Travelers, which Joel read last year, and which has a TV adaptation that at some point we would like to watch. So that took the interest that was sparked here and just turned it into a flame. And I think when I read the back to you, you'll see why this seems so interesting. And I'm glad it's coming out in June, because I feel like this would be a perfect book to read during Pride Month. If you follow along, you know, I always do a pile of possibilities for Pride Month. In the month of June, I try to only read queer authors and queer stories, and this would really fit the bill for that. So I'm very excited. Here is the description. From the renowned novelist and critic, an exquisite collection of journal entries from the 1980s and 90s, tracking a young gay author's literary coming-of-age in New York during the AIDS crisis. In 1983, Thomas Mallon was still unknown. A literature professor at Vassar College, he spent his days traveling from Manhattan to campus, reviewing books to make ends meet and searching the city for his own purpose and fulfillment. The AIDS epidemic was beginning to surge in New York City, the ever-bustling epicenter of literary culture and gay life, alive with parties, art, and sex. Though he didn't know it, everything would soon change for Mallon. Writing the success of his first book, A Book of One's Own, he became a fixture within the city's literary scene, crossing paths with cultural giants, becoming an editor at GQ, and writing critically acclaimed books, all of which he captured through daily journals. But in some ways, it was the worst possible time for a gay coming of age in the city. One of his lovers succumbed to AIDS, and the illness of others was both a heartbreaking reality and a constant reminder of his own exposure. Tracing his own life day by day, Mallon cataloged all that those years encompassed, the hookups, intensifying politics, personal tragedies, as well as his own blossoming success and eventual romantic happiness. The very heart of it is a deft and bewitching look into the daily life of one of our most important literary figures and a keepsake from a bygone era. I'm so interested. So it's obviously, you can see it's a brick of a book. It is 567 pages, which sounds like a lot, but let me tell you, a lot of these entries are very short. Like, that's an entry, that's an entry, that's an entry. So I guess you could be a little bit stop and go. So just as an example, February 28th, this was different. I suspect it will never even happen again. I'm not even sure I want it to. This was simple, healing. I'm not obsessing about it. So some of them are really short, and that to me says, yes, it's long, but it's also very readable. So I'm so excited about this. I usually read nonfiction on audio. This is one that I think I would do in the physical form, because those diary entries, it feels a little more personal to do it that way. So here is how it begins. 1983, October 7. Sometime around 6 o'clock this morning, there was an earthquake. I slept through it. You were supposed to be able to feel it from Canada to, yes, Baltimore. Well, Tommy, my rumble in Poughkeepsie, is your rumble, at least. We're tremored together. But a phone call would be too much. Rachel came into my office in the morning while I was reading more of the Donaldson biography of F. Scott Fitzgerald. She tells me that another part of Tom's conversation last Sunday involved the horror of AIDS. I thought this might have abated by now, but it hasn't. So he will be hiding in his house. In an awful, perverse way, does this make me think, okay, at least he isn't with anyone else? Maybe he'll come back to me. And let's stop there. That is the very heart of it. New York Diaries, 1983 to 1994 by Thomas Mallon, which is coming from Knopf on June 3rd. Release dates can change, but the side of the book says June 3rd, 2025. So there is that. Now we get into some backlist books that are, I think, really exciting. So if you know me, you know that I love vintage paperbacks, and I had been sort of circling a more current edition of The Oxbow Incident by Walter Van Tilburg Clark at my local used bookstore, and just hadn't made the commitment. And then this showed up, and I just had to get it. I did check. It is readable. The type is small, but I don't feel like I'm going to break the spine, because that is a concern with these old vintage paperbacks. Also, it was $1.25. So can't beat the price either. And at my local used bookstore, I basically thrive on trade. I trade stuff in, I get credit, and then I can get stuff without paying for it. Although I guess you're paying for it. You're essentially bartering. But yeah, that's kind of the way I do things. And I just thought this was a great, interesting edition of the book. And it was published, I want to say, in 1940 or 1941. Oh, I love a book that opens with a great illustration. And where's the copyright? Copyright 1940 by Walter Van Tilburg Clark. Did I crush it or did I crush it? And that was a year that there was no Pulitzer winner, which is part of, I'm interested in the Oxbow Incident itself, but I feel like when I approach my Pulitzer Prize project for that year, if you don't know, I'm doing a Pulitzer Prize project where I'm reading all of the fiction winners for that. And for a year with no winner, I explore why there was no winner and what the contenders could have been or would have been. I am pretty sure that that's the year there was no winner, because the dean of Columbia University basically waged war against Ernest Hemingway and For Whom the Bell Tolls, because he thought it was a socialist novel and obscene. So he would rather have seen no prize than for it to go to that Ernest Hemingway for that book. But this is coming the same year. So it ties into my Pulitzer Prize project. And I don't necessarily like Westerns, but Westerns can be great. Like Westerns that don't just create this myth and perpetuate stereotypes of the Old West that are not true are great. Like I love Lonesome Dove, which uses the form of that mythic Western to interrogate the notion of a Western. It's fantastic. Pulitzer Prize winner, by the way. So, The Oxbow Incident. This is a searing study of mob justice. The story takes place in the Old West, but it could happen anywhere, anytime that men of action let their anger goad them into taking the law into their own hands. Published in 1940, this powerful narrative was immediately hailed as a work of art. The Oxbow Incident is a triumph of restraint and workmanship. The tenseness that builds and eddies and comes back stronger is beautifully geared to the temper of each central character and the shifting emotions of the mob, as doubt, anger, stubbornness, physical cold, pity, and revulsion hold them in turn, said Max Gisson in the New Republic. Ben Ray Redmond described it in the Saturday Review as a sinewy masculine tale that progressively tightens its grip on the reader. And Clifton Fadiman summed up the verdict of all the critics when he called this modern classic a masterpiece. I believe Clifton Fadiman was Josephine Johnson's editor when she won the Pulitzer Prize for Now in November, but I could be wrong about that. So obviously it sounds like it's doing a lot. It's in the form of a Western, but it's doing a lot to sort of interrogate things. And to me, that searing question about mob justice, it is unfortunately still relevant today. So I'm just intrigued. I am very intrigued. Chapter 1. Gil and I crossed the eastern divide about 2 by the sun. We pulled up for a look at the little town in the big valley and the mountains on the other side, with the crest of the Sierra showing faintly beyond like the rim of a day moon. We didn't look as long as we do sometimes. After winter range, we were excited about getting back to town. When the horses had stopped trembling from the last climb, Gil took off his sombrero, pushed his sweaty hair back with the same hand, and returned the sombrero, the way he did when something was going to happen. That is The Oxbow Incident by Walter Van Tilburg Clark. Really looking forward to that. Now, the next 3 books were all from the drama section of my local used bookstore. Actually, no, there are 3, but I mixed in 1 book that's not. But basically, I waded through the drama section and found some really interesting books. I love reading plays. I haven't done a whole lot of it in recent years. Same as short story collections. And it's one of those things I'm always thinking I should do more of. So I was going through and I found some really great cheap books, and I enjoy the movie on Golden Pond. I have never seen a production of the play, but they had this movie tie-in with, you can see Henry Fonda, Katharine Hepburn, Jane Fonda, and I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the actor who played Jane Fonda's son in the movie, but it's wonderful. If you have seen the movie, Henry Fonda is obviously Jane Fonda's father in real life, and they play father and daughter in this movie, and it's about the couple. I like it. So this was $1.25 as well. So I grabbed it because I think it would be fun to read the play. How long can love last and grow? 1 heartbeat at a time. Norman and Ethel Thayer have been married for 48 years that have gone by too fast. Their daughter Chelsea has been divorced for what seems forever and has just taken up with another new man whose young son, Billy, is very much alone in a world he never made. This summer, when it comes to love, they're all playing it by ear on Golden Pond. Now, I've never had to read the beginning of a play. I don't know how this is going to work, but let's try it. Act 1, Scene 1, the middle of May, early afternoon. So it's just about the setting, so that seems like a good intro. The setting is the living room of a summer home on Golden Pond in Maine. The room is large and old and high-ceilinged, all wood and glass, not sparkling like a picture in House Beautiful, but rich and wrinkled and comfortable-looking. The house was built in 1914, as a plaque on the chimney proclaims, and it has aged well. Its beams and plank walls are a deep brown, windowsills and doorways fading green, hooked rugs and plaid curtains still bright. There is a line of windows upstage, the sort that can be cranked open, with screens on the outside. Through them can be seen trees, and then a brightness because the sun is reflecting on the lake down below. If one looked far enough, one could see mountains in the distance. And that is all. Just a house on a lake in the woods. Actually, a very good intro to the play on Golden Pond. So we dive back to the world of fiction for a moment before going back for 2 more things I found in the drama section. And talk about The War Between the Tates by Alison Lurie. This is another book that's adjacent to my Pulitzer Prize project. Alison Lurie won a Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 1986 or 1987. I don't remember which, but she won for a book called Foreign Affairs, which I have not read yet. And recently, I have also become interested in other books by Pulitzer winners, especially the older and more forgotten ones. And it seems Alison Lurie was very popular in the 80s. I don't think a lot of current readers would be very familiar with her. It seems fair to say. And also it has a vintage paperback cover, which, as I have said, delights me. So, and it's the brilliant, witty novel of a marriage under siege by young sex, middle age, and old dreams. So there's no description on the back. It's just the critics called it brilliant, polished, a fine-hewn treasure. Light, rich in humor and irony, bright, sparkling, spiritedly amusing, savagely humorous, devastating, a triumph, witty investigation. Real rather than invented, wickedly amusing, superb satirical comment, most perceptive, and splendidly crafted. So, let's see if there's a description on the inside. There's not. There are only blurbs. So, there's a blurb from Truman Capote. The delightful Miss Lurie at her finest. Hilarious, contemporary, one of the few American novels Jane Austen would most certainly have enjoyed. That is a good recommendation. That is a good recommendation. Thank you, Truman Capote. Let me see if there's anybody else notable. Oh, Philip Roth has a long blurb for it. Yeah, so there's no description of the book. But let's see how it begins. Chapter 1. March 20th. A cold spring morning. It rained last night, perforating the crusted snow of the Tates' front lawn, and everything is wet and glitters. The fine gravel of the drive, the ice in the ditch beside it, the bare elm twigs outside the bathroom window. The sun shines sideways at the house, brilliantly, impartially. Seeing it through the kitchen window when she comes down to make breakfast, Erica Tate feels her emotional temperature, which has been unnaturally low of late, rise several degrees. That is The War Between the Tates by Alison Lurie. I've gotten away from announcing publishers. Actually, these two, on Golden Pond and Oxbow Incident, were published by Signet paperbacks, those editions at least, and this was published by Warner Books. Now we go back to the drama section. Sweet Bird of Youth by Tennessee Williams. I have seen the movie. I've never seen a production of it. I like Tennessee Williams a great deal. He writes fantastic plays like A Streetcar Named Desire and The Glass Menagerie. He also, especially as his career progressed and he fell into alcoholism, had very mixed quality as well. But I think he's a fascinating person, and everything that I have read of his and seen performed of his, well, only really through movies, is really interesting. Sweet Bird of Youth, the film adaptation, starred Paul Newman, and it won Ed Begley an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. And I just grabbed an opportunity to get it. Like many of Tennessee Williams' works, Sweet Bird of Youth, his 1959 success, developed gradually from a one-act play to an expanded version put on in Florida in 1956, to the Broadway reworking, and ultimately to the published text, now available for the first time as a New Directions paperback. It is this developmental care and artistry in large part, that have won the author one of the largest play-reading publics of our time. The very title of Sweet Bird of Youth is one of ironic pity. The two chief characters, a rattled, has-been actress from Hollywood seeking to forget her present in drugs and sex, and her still handsome Monsieur Gigolo, who has brought her to his hometown in the South, believing that through her money and faded glamour, his gaudy illusions may yet come true, are the reverse side of the American dream of youth. Yet as they work out their fate amid violence and horror, there is nevertheless a note of compassion for the damned. So, one of the other things I find really interesting about dramas is that sort of evolutionary quality. They are not really set in stone the way novels are. If you look at the history of performances of Amadeus, I forget the author of that play, but the movie's fantastic. It really drastically changed through all of those processes, and that can be really interesting. Let's see how this begins. Maybe there will be a good intro. Let's see. The synopsis of scenes. We're going to skip over that. Oh, Geraldine Page and Paul Newman both originated the roles on Broadway. That's really interesting because they both translate to the movie. Act 1, Scene 1. Ooh, there's a painting of a stage setting for the New York production. That's fun. Scene 1. A bedroom of an old-fashioned but still fashionable hotel somewhere along the Gulf Coast in a town called St. Cloud. I think of it as resembling one of those grand hotels around Sorrento or Monte Carlo, set in a palm garden. The style is vaguely Moorish. The principal set piece is a great double bed which should be raked toward the audience. In a sort of Moorish corner, backed by shuttered windows, is a wicker taboret and 2 wicker stools, over which is suspended a Moorish lamp on a brass chain. The windows are floor-length, and they open out upon a gallery. There is also a practical door frame opening onto a corridor. The walls are only suggested. Sweet Bird of Youth by Tennessee Williams. And then, I don't think I need to spend a lot of time on this. They had Tennessee Williams's memoirs. I grabbed it. I have his collected journals somewhere over there, and I love that book. So I figured his actual memoirs would be really fun too. And yeah, I don't think I really need to tell you what it's about. It's about Tennessee Williams. It's about his telling of his life. So let's just jump right to the opening of the book. There's a long forward. Chapter 1. To begin this thing on a socially impressive note, let me tell you that one recent fall, before the leaves had fallen, I happened to be weekending at one of the last great country houses in England, an estate so close to Stonehenge that one of the stones was dropped on the lady's estate before it got to that prehistorical scene of druidical worship, and probably due to collapse or revolt of slave labor, it was not picked up, but allowed to rest where it fell. And this bit of information has only the slightest and most oblique connection with the material, which follows. Memoirs by Tennessee Williams. The last book is something I found at my library for $2 and could not pass up because I believe it's a first edition. It's also an author that I have been recently enjoying. Yeah, so it's the first trade edition. A signed first edition was done by the Franklin Library. That's the thing the Franklin Library used to do. They would get the rights to release a first edition of the book, and then there'd be a first trade edition published alongside it. So this is Ladder of Years by Ann Tyler. I just recently read 3 Days in June. I loved The Dinner at the Homesick Restaurant. I need to reread Breathing Lessons for my Pulitzer Prize project. And when I did my Friday reads where I talked about 3 Days in June, I can't remember who, but somebody commented to recommend Ladder of Years. And I remember smiling when I saw that comment because I knew this was coming in my book haul. So this edition is published by Knopf. And here is what it is about. In this, her 13th novel and her most beguiling yet, Ann Tyler tells the story of a 40-year-old woman, the mother of 3 almost grown children, who on a sudden impulse walks away from her marriage, hitches a ride into the unknown, and settles in a strange new town to invent a new life. Shades of All Fours by Miranda July, but hopefully different. What propels Delia Grinstead, the wife of a Baltimore physician, as she is spending another rainy vacation with husband, children, and assorted relatives? Is it old hurts and humiliations that surface this particular summer in the family-infested beach cottage? The feeling that she has become expendable? The memory, perhaps, of that angular young man in the supermarket who asked her to pose as his girlfriend when he runs into his ex-wife? Or is it simply the lure of the local repairman's beautifully self-sufficient van, sailing off, unencumbered? Whatever, Delia takes off, wearing only her swimsuit and her husband's beach robe, and doesn't stop until she is suddenly captivated by a quiet little tree-lined town. There she halts the van, hops off, finds a stark room to rent, and settles in. So begins her new impersonal life as Ms. Grinstead. But inevitably, the world crowds in. New friends, new responsibilities accumulate. From a stray cat who craves a home to a sad, deserted husband and his little boy who need her to fill a hole in their lives. That sounds really interesting, and I trust an author like Ann Tyler to tell a story like that. I love a complicated family saga, as you know, so I'm all in. There is an illustration, lovely, on the title page. Here is how it opens with a fake news item about a Baltimore. The headline is "Baltimore Woman Disappears During Family Vacation," and then Chapter 1. This all started on a Saturday morning in May, one of those warm spring days that smell like clean linen. Delia had gone to the supermarket to shop for the week's meals. She was standing in the produce section, languidly choosing a bunch of celery. Grocery stores always made her reflective. Why was it, she wondered, that celery was not called corduroy plant? That would be much more colorful. And garlic bulbs should be money bags, because their shape reminded her of the sacks of gold coins in folk tales. That is the opening to Ladder of Years by Ann Tyler. I am so excited for all of these books, and I would love to hear which ones of these you are also interested in. If you have recommendations based on my interest in these, I'd love to hear them in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.